Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Groover. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I am Kathy Groover, and I'm so excited about this conversation today. I wish we didn't have to have this conversation, but it's something that is so pervasive in our society. Jason, remember probably maybe 20 years ago, if somebody was sort of arrogant, sort of full of themselves, people would toss around the word, oh, he's such a narcissist. And we didn't actually really know what that was. It just sort of was this umbrella term for someone who was kind of full of themselves or a little passive aggressive maybe, but anybody that was too pretty, too rich, they were a narcissist, right? Well, now we're seeing a lot of narcissism happening. And, every magazine cover is, are you a narcissist? Is your boss a narcissist? Are you living with, is your cat a narcissist? And they are, because they're perfect. And you should give them whatever they want. But I'm about to do a workshop on navigating the narcissist. And so having been in multiple relationships with narcissists and having bosses or partners, bosses who are narcissists, it's just everybody's talking about it. And I've coached a lot of men and women. Normally you think of narcissists as men, but in reality, there's a lot of women narcissists out there. Yeah. Coaching clients through either recovering from that relationship or getting out of that relationship. I thought it would be an interesting topic today.
Yeah, and I thought it was good. I think it's good because, like you said, in the old days, people would kind of, without really understanding anything, just kind of label somebody as that. And now I almost think it's kind of swung to the other side too, where it's like people are using the word so much that sometimes it's not appropriate the way they're using it. And there are lots of different kinds of narcissists.
Yep.
And there are a lot of narcissists, right? I mean, again, I don't know if the percentages have changed, recently, because I thought before it was like 5% or less of the population would actually be clinically a narcissist. But that's why it's good to have this discussion, because I think I've heard some people who just don't like somebody's behavior and they're like, oh, they're a narcissist. And it's like, whoa, just a minute. That's right. That's kind of a psychological term that you need to really understand if the person actually is, or if they're just doing something you don't like.
Exactly.
And so you're just labeling them that and calling them a name. Right. That doesn't really fit. But unfortunately, there are, all of us have to deal with some of these people.
Yeah. And there's a healthy level of narcissism. I mean, we all at some point have to put ourselves first. We have to think about ourselves and how things are going to affect us. So in that way, we do have to have a little bit of that I don't want to say self-centeredness in a bad way, but we are self-centric people. We should be to a certain extent. And I'm seeing, and you brought up the clinical aspect of it. So the DSM, I think we're up to 5 now. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual has a really specific definition of what a narcissist is. So even if someone is not a clinical narcissist, they can still have narcissistic tendencies. There's narcissistic personality disorder, and then there's, hey, that guy's a narcissist. And what's interesting is doing so much research on this, because I had gotten out of a relationship with a narcissist, having done so much research on this and read so many books, a study surveyed 100 social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, and said, what do you think is the hardest personality type to deal with? And 100% of them said narcissists. And then the researcher said, well, do you think these people change? Is it possible to un-narcissist yourself? And 100% of those clinicians said no. So it's a tough one. I've had women sit in my office crying and going, what if he just goes to therapy? And, I'm never going to say don't go to therapy, and I'm never going to say there's no hope. But having that statistic in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, honey, this is not an easy thing to change, because why would you want to? It's not uncomfortable for the person that's experiencing it. It's not like OCD where you can't function in society, or depression, or bipolar where it's this like torturous condition. You're basically getting whatever you want. You feel great all the time. Why would you want to stop that? It's like, why would you go and voluntarily stop dominating everybody? It feels good. It's normal for the people that are truly suffering from that. So yeah, it's just been an interesting thing to do all this study on.
Yeah, because it's almost like it's it's a part of them, or such a big part of them, that it really is them, right? It's a lot of the stuff we can kind of fix, because we are like multiple egos, and we can kind of work on which one shows up here, and
Yeah.
kind of work through some of these things. But it's almost like, true hardcore narcissists, that's just who they are, energetically, everywhere, right? And so because of that, like I said, I don't think they normally change.
Right.
And so it's I think sometimes hard when you're in a relationship with someone like that, because you think, oh, they're going to change, and you keep, giving in and letting them manipulate you.
Yeah.
And the problem is, it just never does change,
Right.
you know. Um,
Well, and it's such a cycle of abuse. And I'm not necessarily saying that if you're in a narcissistic relationship, there's abuse happening. But the cycle of abuse is, there's some tension that builds up, and then there's an explosion. And then there's this honeymoon period, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll never do that. I didn't mean to. And, this is what kept stringing me along for so long, is it was the situation of too good to leave, too bad to stay. Right. The moments that were good were so good. And those were like 70% of the time. The 30% that sucked, it sucked. But just as you'd think, oh crap, I can't do this anymore, there would be that shift in that cycle, and it would be fabulous again for 6 weeks, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, and then that cycle would come back. And whether the narcissists are conscious of that or not, they're very sensitive to that energy, and they can feel when the partner is pulling back and getting ready to be done. That's when the honeymoon phase kicks back in. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, da, 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 da. And over years of dealing with that come here, go away thing, the non-narcissist in the relationship ends up so beaten down, because there's often financial manipulation or friends manipulation, or you can't go see them, or you tell me where you are every time of the day, or I'm controlling your finances, or, oh, well, it looks like you put on more weight. They build you, they break you down to the point where you feel like you have no choice but to stay. And that's one of those, very gaslighty, manipulative things that a severe narcissist can do. Lots of bullying behavior. Gaslighting comes from the movie from the 30s called Gaslight, which was an incredible film, and it was Angela Lansbury's first role. And in the play Angel Street, I actually played the same role. I was the slutty maid. It's Kelsey Priest. So, but it's like the whole point of that movie was the husband was trying to convince the wife that she was going insane, so that he could put her away and he could get all the money, all the treasure that was hidden in the attic. And that movie, the gaslight, that has become a term, gaslighting. And if you get on TikTok or Insta, everyone's talking about gaslighting. And it's pervasive, and it's very insidious. And sometimes you don't recognize it. You don't know it's happening. Lots of blame, lots of denial, lots of, well, I didn't say that, you twisted that, I was just kidding. Oh, you're making a big deal of that. Oh, you say the same thing. A lot of those kind of phrases are key to the narcissist and the gaslighting.
Yeah, and so, I guess in trying to think about this, for the person who is not the narcissist, but may feel like they have some relationship. And again, it could be romantic relationship, it could be
Parent, kid,
family,
teacher. Yep.
yeah, coworker.
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of navigate through that? I mean, because like I said, it's we don't want to too quickly kind of label somebody. So how do you start to identify or recognize that this may be what you're actually dealing with?
Yeah, I think there's a couple common patterns. If you feel like you're the crazy one, if you walk away from a situation going, God, maybe I am like, maybe this is because they convince you that you're nuts. I mean, and that was the point of the movie. This woman started to question her sanity because the husband was pulling all these stunts in the movie Gaslight to make her think that she was losing her mind. Um, it's very manipulative, and that's sort of the point. So if you walk away from the situation going, God, maybe it is me, that might be a sign that you're dealing with this. When you find yourself having personality traits that you're not used to, I would find myself screaming back at my partner. I am not a yeller. I didn't grow up in a family with screaming, but they would push me and push buttons because they're very good at that too. They know what your weak points are. I would find myself screaming back and then thinking, this is not me. Like, what is happening to me? Um, you find yourself limited in who you can see, what you can do, what you can wear, what you can eat. Check in when you're there, check in when you're there. Now, we've talked about this before. Checking in, that's a great thing. My husband rides a scooter, rides a bike. The deal is when you get to where you're going, you check in and let me know you're okay. That is not me questioning where he is every second of the day. Who are you with? What are you doing? You shouldn't do that. You can't do that. I'm going to limit your. That's where it gets to be the point of maybe this isn't for my safety. Maybe this is because you're trying to control my behavior kind of situation. If you can leave, leave. I mean, I would never tell a client go because it's not my place to do that as a coach. And having said that, if you find yourself in a situation with a coworker, a boss, a client, a romantic partner, if you can go, go. It's hard because they've got you so embedded and so strung in. It's really hard to separate from a narcissist because they've manipulated you often for a very long time. If you can go, go. That's the first thing. If you can't go, maybe it's your child, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a coworker. And I listened to a workshop from a woman who coaches people who have gotten away from narcissists. And the first thing she said was, I will not work with you unless you've left. And I raised my hand and I said, that's great. I totally appreciate that. What if the person can't go? What if it's a job they can't quit? What if they have no money to leave the husband? What if they've got newborn kids? And her response, which I didn't like, was, you can always go. Yes, and it's not always that easy. I finally went out of several relationships with narcissists. If that's your job and you're the breadwinner and you're stuck in that situation, it's not as easy as just go. So we acknowledge that. But there's something called gray stoning, which is where you just don't give them any fodder. They could be standing in your face screaming and you're like, okay. Or, or, yep, you're right. Now, you don't have to say you're right is hard because you don't want to give them that power. But if you say that, that satisfies them and they walk away. They want engagement. They want you to stand there and scream back. They want to watch you lose your mind. They want to watch you lose your shit. That's what they're going to prod you into. So if you can greystone them and give them nothing, they're going to move on to somebody else.
Yeah, which is interesting because people want to kind of fight back though. Right. And so it's because I don't know, it's almost like we need to feel like we're right, or we need to let them know.
Yeah. We want to defend ourselves.
We want to defend ourselves. We want to kind of justify that, no, I'm not the crazy one, you are, right?
Right.
And so, but by doing that, you continue to engage and you have that back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And it is hard, at first to kind of do that gray stoning. But I found I wasn't familiar with that term, but I'm starting to do that more and more with all kinds of people. Not even necessarily just a narcissist, but of, not going there, not going where they are wanting me to go. And I just kind of, play it smooth or whatever. I mean, I remember I was in one relationship where I was physically held down, pinned down to the ground, because she wanted me to hit her or do something, right? So then she could be justified, like, oh, he's an abuser or whatever. And I had to. It was hard, right? Because again, there's that defending part of me who, if somebody's holding me down or physically trying to harm me, I want to go at them, right?
Sure.
And so it was hard to just lay there on the floor for, I don't know, it seemed like a long time. It was probably only a few minutes, but it seemed like a long time, and not give her what she wanted.
Yeah.
Right. And just kind of, and I think sometimes we don't want to do that because it feels like we're giving up. But it's more like being a possum.
Yeah.
It's a defense mechanism that when you do that, then the aggressor goes away.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you want, is for them to just go away.
Yeah. So that's why keeping it short, or just not saying anything, sometimes just leaving the situation, sometimes leaving the house, leaving the office, leaving the whatever, can solve that problem. often they'll continue it. I mean, I remember like leaving the house and coming back hours later, and he was right there to pick up the fight. And I'm like, wow, you're still wanting to engage in that. Okay. So it would be lock yourself in a different bedroom, or, but also setting those boundaries. And this is one of the things that we advise to do at work. You know, hopefully they're not pinning you down and holding you at work or trying to physically do something to you, because that would be a big problem in a work environment. But saying something like, if you continue to yell, I'm not going to engage in this conversation. Or, you and I see the situation differently. We've talked at it. We're done. I'm not willing to go round and round with you on this. We're going to have to agree to disagree. This conversation is over. Setting those kind of boundaries. And I love if you continue to yell, I'm not going to continue this conversation. And then sticking to that. So those boundaries are good not only with a narcissist, but also just difficult people anyway. I mean, just because someone's difficult doesn't mean they're a narcissist. And that's where I think you were talking about with we're just labeling everybody that now. But just expressing, hey, this is not working for me. So, we're going to just stop this conversation. And if it's a workplace situation, try to address it with the person. And the way narcissism often looks in a work relationship is people will gossip, people will say they're lifting you up, but they're actually beating you down behind the scenes. They're taking credit for what you've done. You're so great, you're the best at this. And then behind the scenes, they're going to the boss and saying, what they're doing. It's sucks because often the narcissists are the higher ups, because they are so ambitious, they're so charismatic, they're incredibly bright. It's pretty rare that you're going to find a stupid narcissist, because they don't have it in them. They don't know how to manipulate like that, right? So high intelligence, and there is often this like good looking, put together kind of arrogance to them that in a corporate world works. You move up the ladder quicker that way, which is unfortunate. I saw one situation where this higher up was like basically grooming this underling to take over, and in reality they were basically trying to get them fired. You're so great, and then suddenly it was, nobody likes you, and I'm the only person you have here, and if you didn't have me, you wouldn't be at this company. And it was so come here, go away. It was so horribly manipulative, and the person finally had to quit the job and leave the company, because though it was their dream job, it was a nightmare to be working with this person. So, address it with them. If that doesn't work, go to a higher up, then go to HR. And then if it becomes really, really bad, you might have to have a legal repercussion to that. You might have to have a legal way of dealing with this. So,
Well, and that is an interesting thing, probably to help us kind of end on a little bit, because I know I'm familiar from the corporate side. And that's again where, in the general population, right, it's a certain percentage of total people maybe that are actual narcissists.
yeah.
But in corporate or organizational environments, typically the higher up one goes in the organization, the higher percentage of total there are. So if you look at, for example, CEOs, the number of narcissists who are CEOs is significantly higher than the base population,
Oh, sure.
because those tendencies have made them successful to get to
Yep.
that particular point, right? And so, again, just to kind of give you some guidelines, if it is at work and it is somebody way up in the organization that are doing some of these behaviors, chances are it probably is, and you may need to just extricate yourself from the situation.
Yeah. Or, switch departments or go to a different section of that organization. Or, and like I said, the very first step is, if you can, leave the relationship, leave the friendship, I've had clients who have to basically divorce their children because the children are so nasty and so manipulative that they just can't handle being around their own kids anymore, which is so sad. I don't have kids, so I can't imagine what that's like to be in an environment where your kid is abusing you to the point where you have to let them go. That's got to be a hard choice to make, and none of us want to do that. But if you can go, separate yourself from that person for your own health. Surround yourself with people who are supportive. Journal, go to a coach or a psychologist. Make sure you've got self-care to help counteract the effect of having this negative influence in your life.
Good.
Good.
All right. So with that, everybody go out, have a good week. If you feel like you might be dealing with a narcissist, go back and listen to this episode again, because Kathy shot off a lot of different ways for you to start to identify it, and then figure out what you need to do. And like she said, if you can go is probably the easiest way, because chances are you're not going to be able to work through it with the person because they probably won't change.
Yeah.
So, but don't worry, there's hope at the end of the tunnel because both Kathy and I have left relationships and have left right when we could different relationships with narcissists. So it can be done. It's hard, but you can do it. So,
well, and one thing I just want to say, just as a reassurance, it's not your fault.
no.
You're not stupid. You're not gullible. Most of us have found ourselves in a situation where we go, what the hell was I thinking? How did I fall for that? Why did I stay so long? You know what? There's no blame to go around with that. It could be 6 months. It could be 20 years. You make the decision and get out when it's time and when you can. So don't beat yourself over it if you're in a relationship where this is happening. Yeah. Cool. All right. I'm Kathy Gruber. I can be reached at kathygruber.coach.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out and have a great week. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.
See ya.